Welcome back to Tipsy Tailgate Media. I'm Aiden,
Me llamo Ben.
and we're back again. Week 13 NFL slate. We hope you guys enjoyed our Thanksgiving special episode because, quite frankly, I enjoyed it. Did you, Ben?
I loved it. I had a great time, except for Jason joining us. That was awful. But Salvatore joining us was quite a treat. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, had some of the old folks visit us again from studio times back at QU. So it was very exciting, a lot of fun. If you haven't watched it yet, still watch it. Even if the games are old, funny stuff was going on. We were making fun of tags like usual. So it was a good time.
He deserved it. He 100% deserved it.
Basically, well, we'll save it for you, but he was copying Ben's picks down the stretch.
Every single pick. He copied it. Every single pick. It was such a joke.
It was a good time though. So
might as well have me speak twice. Yeah. That's might as well like what should have happened. It was a complete waste of time for him to be there. I'm going to be completely honest and frank. There was no point in him being there.
So if you haven't seen that yet, go check that out.
What's up, guys? We are proud to be partnering with Underdog Fantasy, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You gotta check out Pick'em. You gotta check out the draft. It's so easy to play. The Pick'em in specific. Just go pick out 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players or your least favorite players. Choose whether they'll go higher or lower of that stat, and you can 20x your money by going 5 for 5. Did you hear me correctly? 20x. Go ahead and play. Sounds fun, doesn't it? Download their app, Underdog Fantasy, and sign up today using code TIPSY to get your first deposit up to $100 matched. Let's see the entries and reach out to us if you do it because we want to see who our loyal fans are.
Should be our last video, but we're back week 13, not 13, week 13. Keep getting my weeks messed up. It's week 13. I bolded number 13 just so I know.
The season's been so bad for the Pats that I think you're just kind of stuck in a rut and kind of
it's
trying
tough.
to get through it the best way you can.
I mean, it's tough. It's a tough life out here.
Awful. The Pats are so bad. So bad.
Oh yeah, we're real bad. Real bad. But what I wanted to get into here is week 13. Like I said, Ben, I want you to start us off here. Patriots, are we that bad, or did we intentionally lose that game against the Giants?
The funniest thing, Aiden, to me is they did everything outside of playing for the tie and going to overtime, which, I think Bill was more thinking, let the defense win it. I think that was his goal, which he has shown in the past. They did everything that they could to win that game. Everything they could. Everything in their power, every resource that was available to them to win that game, they tried to do it. They just have no talent. To this point, honestly, Bill, the coach, hasn't looked phenomenal, given that he's being held back by Bill, the GM. I mean, Bill, the GM, is the worst thing in sports right now. But they did everything they could, and they're just not good enough. And they lost to Tommy DeVito. So, congratulations. You lost to Tommy DeVito. You lost to a pathetic quarterback. You lost to a pathetic team. And you did everything that you could to win that game. So, if you're the Pats right now, you should be embarrassed and ashamed.
Listen, I think it comes down to a couple things. And I'll be lying if I said that I wasn't cheering that Ryland missed that field goal.
He had to miss.
Because I was going crazy. I was, screaming at the TV, please miss, please miss. And, he did. So keeps us, actually, I think that moves us to second overall pick, right?
Since the Bears lost, I believe we now have the second pick.
Yeah, so as of right now, I think we're holding the second overall pick, which is very exciting. I mean, never in my life has my team been picking that high. So very exciting. Kind of a cocky thing to say.
Exciting for all the wrong reasons. Exciting for all the wrong reasons.
I mean, we're so spoiled. We just want to be bad right now. That's how good it's been in the past. But this I think is for the right reasons. And what I was gonna say is, I was happy for it because I've been saying it all year, but I'm gonna keep saying it. I think that we should be trying to lose.
Yes.
Or not trying to lose, but wink,
no,
wink.
At this point,
try to lose. Get us a top pick.
You can't.
You have to.
You can't afford. If you're the Patriots right now, you can't afford to win 2 games. You can't afford to win 2 more at all. Because then you drop to maybe the 4th pick in the draft and you miss out on Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Marvin Harrison, who to me are the 3 guys in this draft who you can legitimately rebuild around. Given how valuable receiver has become, a guy like Marvin Harrison is a guy that you can rebuild a team around.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can fall any lower than 3 in this draft. It would be a killer.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was pretty funny because I was cheering for us to miss that field goal, but at the same time, I was cheering for the Panthers to win, so we'd
Yep.
have a chance at the first overall because it
Yep.
was like 17-10, and they just suck. Like they really suck.
They're honestly, with the firing of Frank Reich, maybe that changes some things, and maybe
That's what I was thinking.
Maybe they get a little bit of juice, and then
That's what I was thinking.
we keep getting worse. So hopefully that's how this goes.
Listen, it makes sense because there's always that known thing of, coach gets fired, they go on a little bit of a hot streak,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 weeks, whatever it is. That usually happens. I mean, it's happening right now with the Raiders, and obviously a different situation there. They've got some playmakers, but hopefully the Panthers can recreate that and do it. I hope they win out.
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Can you imagine how great that would be? I can't say it enough. You can't afford to win more than one more game. One more game. And even that's a bit risky given, I mean, if the Panthers get the pick, well, the Bears have the pick. That's the thing. The Bears have their pick, right? Like the Panthers.
No, the Panther. Yeah, the Bears have the Panthers.
The Bears have the Panthers pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the Bears end up ahead of you with the Panthers pick, okay. Likely you lose Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison if they get the first pick. You can't lose Drake May. Drake May is the guy that they should want. It's the guy they need. I know a lot of people have been saying this, so I'm not the first one to be saying this. Drake May is a much more sure thing than Caleb Williams, given I think Caleb Williams has an attitude problem. I think he has a leadership problem. And honestly, I think his play on the field is wildly overrated. So the rest of those things that I just mentioned are just going to exasperate his other problems. So I think Drake May is the guy you need, the guy that you should want. And honestly, I was saying this to our friend Monty. Monty, the GOAT. Thank you for all that you do for the pod. A little bit of a shout out.
Shout out.
But I kind of want them to end up with the second pick so that they don't pull a typical Pats and overthink things and not take the guy that they should take anyway. If you get two, I feel like you're kind of forced to take Drake May. So that's what I want to happen.
Okay. My thing here is completely perfect logic. I like it. The one thing I differ on, and we know this, is my standing on Caleb Williams versus Drake May. Not that I'm against Drake May at all. I know obviously you have a preference of his.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Caleb Williams guy through and through, and I'm actually excited and happy that whatever went down near the end of the season, him crying with his mom, them not playing well. I'm excited that happened because that has given us a chance at not only, getting to the point where maybe if we're picking at 2, if we're picking at 3, he's still there. Whereas before people were going to be trading, the entire system to try to get that number 1 overall pick to get him.
Right.
So it puts us in the game a little bit more. But I think what it also does is it tempers expectations for him when he comes into the league. And I think that's huge because if the Patriots do get him, I don't want my QB coming in with, if this guy's not thrown for 3 touchdowns a game like Stroud's doing, he's not as good as people thought, all this pressure. I don't want that. I don't want that out of QB. I don't want that out of anyone on this team. So I like that for multiple reasons. My other point I want to make here on Caleb is, just doing a quick look at the numbers. I know it's not all numbers. Just out of pure eye test talent, to me, I think Caleb is one of the best QBs that's come out of this draft, or that's going to enter this draft. In recent years, even I might be a little biased here, but I think his talent surpasses Trevor Lawrence's. I really do.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
I mean, because when you look at it, Trevor Lawrence obviously had a lot of guys around him to play with. I want to just confirm some of these receivers because obviously he played in Clemson, and they're always a receiver.
Well, they were a wagon. On top of that,
they're always
the whole team was sick.
Just off a quick search, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, those are 2 guys in the league. T. Higgins, one that's, superstar. Deontay Johnson, not Deontay Johnson, Travis Etienne, another really good playmaker. He's with him now on the Jags.
Dabo coaching when,
Dabo coaching.
An elite coach.
You look at Caleb Williams last year, a year that he was so dominant and, walked away with that Heisman, 42 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 4,500 yards. Phenomenal year.
Yeah.
In that season, he had Jordan Addison, and that's pretty much it. Unless I'm missing a guy here, Jordan Addison, and he was injured for most of the year. Jordan Addison, very back and forth. That's the year after they got him after winning the Biletnikoff for the University of Pittsburgh, which was a great, he was phenomenal there. But besides the fact he's doing well on the Vikings now, so that's probably been the only receiver and maybe even weapon that he's going to have that's going to be an NFL-like talent compared to the guys that Trevor Lawrence had, compared to the coaching. Obviously Caleb's got Lincoln Riley over there, but he's not as proven as a guy like Dabo. So what I'm basically saying is, with all facts considered, when I just look at the stats, I mean, I'm Caleb, and I'm Caleb over even the likes of Trevor Lawrence, like I said. But when you look at the numbers, I mean, like I just said, read out last year's numbers. His 2021 numbers are just as good for a smaller sample size. 1,900 yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's only off of 211 attempts compared to the next year, 500. And then this year, obviously, he's got a little bit more to go, but 388 attempts. He's got 3,600 yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His best QB rating out of his 3 years is right now, and it seems like the sky's falling and the guy sucks the way the media is putting it out.
But does the winning not concern you, or the lack thereof?
And obviously that is the red flag here is they're losing. He's not handling it maybe as
to me,
as
it's
well
not
as people
even.
think.
Not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
This is going way back, and the only reason that I'm even going to mention this is because of I just watched. I don't know if you've ever seen the 30 for 30 Elway to Marino.
Yeah, great
perfect.
one. Yes,
it's a fucking perfect documentary for any sport.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. Yep. But in that, they kind of touch upon the fact that Marino had a perfect junior year at Pitt, and then not a great senior year.
Yeah,
which was a major red flag. And I'm not saying it's kind of a funky comparison for what I'm going here with, because I'm not really I think Caleb will be good, but I'm concerned by it. I think there should be a little bit more of that than there is with Caleb. I still see a lot of people saying consensus first pick. I think there are a lot more red flags than people are acknowledging, and to me it's more, you kind of alluded to it, it's how he's handling the losses, what he's doing after the losses, kind of making his teammates stand there during the press conference. To me, that's a bad leader. When you're the quarterback, when you're the face of college football, it's on you to stand there and take the questions after the game. And he honestly, he just hasn't done it. So to me, that's a major red flag.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, that is, in my opinion, the biggest issue with Caleb is that exactly. The two things that I want to kind of weigh here is if I had to come out with comps, and this is, we're pre-combine, we're pre-full, season's over, we're going into analysis here on who we like. If I had to give you just a quick eye test comp here, I'm going Drake May to Justin Herbert. 6'4", 230, yep. Big dude. Obviously, he can throw the ball, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And, he's also been able to show that he's, can run it at times. Just this past week, he had 106 yards and rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Not that he's, super dangerous on his legs. He can do it if he needs.
It's just like Herbert. He can do it when he needs to.
Exactly. And, I don't want to set this expectation for him, but when I see Caleb, I see a guy that can make all the throws. He can do it effortlessly. He can improvise and do it on his feet. Maybe not as much as a guy like Drake May, but to the caliber of when you think of a guy like, what's a good comp for that? I mean, if you're looking at Mahomes and you're saying what's a good Mahomes like comp from a guy out of college, not saying he's going to be the Mahomes obviously, but what's a comp for him? I think Caleb Williams is a fitting comp. Size-wise, they kind of match up. They have a little bit of the same swag. Caleb loves to display that swag. He loves to make different arm angle throws. He loves to celebrate after a nice touchdown play. And, matter of fact, he might not be the best at handling media and situations like that. But do we really even know how Patrick Mahomes would have been in that situation if he was that highly touted? Because he wasn't. He wasn't that highly touted.
But I think we do know. We do know.
Now we know for sure. But Caleb Williams is a junior here, and he's got learning to do, especially if it's in a Belichick offense or a Belichick-led team. If he does end up in New England, Belichick stays.
There's no way.
I
There's
mean,
no
it's
way.
who knows at this point. But what I'm basically saying here is, I think that Caleb Williams gives you more of the conventional, like he joins a team and your team goes skyrockets in value and talent in
Right.
ceiling. Whereas I think
Him
Drake
at his
May,
peak, 100%.
exactly.
100%.
So that's my comparison of the two. Obviously, we're gonna have some podcasts centered around college football and the Heisman, or not the Heisman race, the draft, the NFL draft, and that's gonna be a fun time. But for now, we have our obvious favorites that we have preferences on, and it'll be interesting to see where we lay out. Basically, what we're trying to say is here, we hope the fucking Patriots can get
Just
one of these
lose
two
out.
guys. Like,
Can you imagine a scenario, Aiden, where the Pats get the first overall pick and the Bears are so worried about them taking Caleb Williams that they use one of their first rounders to swap with them, and then we move to, say, 2 or 3, and then we use that pick to take Drake May, and then on top of that, we get the rest of the capital in that draft, say second rounders, third rounders, and that's a complete rebuild in one draft potentially. So to me, that would be the most ideal thing, where you somehow luck your way into one, and then the Bears have 2 and 3, and then maybe you trade down to 3, where they take Caleb and Marvin Harrison, and then you take Drake May, and then you get all those other picks, and you start rebuilding your whole roster. To me, that's the most ideal situation.
Yeah, something like that would be great. And obviously, knowing Belichick's history of trading, that would be, very possible. And something that, like you said, would catapult us completely if it falls in our favor. Now, if it doesn't fall in our favor and we draft a fucking offensive lineman,
Which could happen,
then I'm never going to watch football again.
Yeah, no, I'll be done.
But, yeah.
This is why, but to me, this is why, on top of the fact that the last 2 years, Bill has looked like he's toast and that he's done, which I don't think he is as a coach. As a GM, 100%. Not as a coach. I still think he's a very good coach. I still think he's a elite coach in the NFL. You can't let him take the reins on this draft, given his draft history and how important. This is the most important draft that they've had since '93 when they took Bledsoe. This is the most important draft maybe
100%.
in franchise history. So
yeah, definitely.
You can't blow this. It's the best position you've been in terms of a draft and being able to rebuild your team in literally 25 years. So you can't fuck it up. You can't afford to fuck it up.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. All right, let's get into some Week 13 NFL talk, though. Betting record check-in. I'm 33-31-2. Ben is 28-33-2. We're definitely taking a little bit of a hit on what was a great record for both of us earlier in the season, but we'll be back, no doubt about that. Pat's pick check-ins. We're both 4-6. And Tipsy Bowl, I believe 5 and I believe you're 5. No, I'm 5-6. I think you're 6-5. I think that would be my guess. But if you're following us on Instagram, you'll see that betting graphic every week, and you'll know exactly what we are. And without further ado, let's get into our first game that we're going to talk about. Chargers going to New England. Patriots are 6-point underdogs. 40 is the over-under. Ben, what do you think about this Patriots game?
To me, there are 2 games left that the Pats could win, and this is sneaky one of them. So I'm kind of worried about that. But I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'm really hoping that the Chargers get it done. To me, they just have so many weapons at their disposal. We have no way of stopping those weapons. Our offense can't keep pace with them. Regardless of who's starting at quarterback, they both suck. They're both horrible. Even though they don't have Joey Bosa anymore, Khalil Mack has, in a way, become the most underrated player in the league because he is still disgusting, and no one seems to want to give him that credit. He's not what Khalil Mack used to be, but he can still go out there and get 2 to 3 sacks in any given game. So you can't rule him out at all. And our O-line's a fucking disgrace. But I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. I'll put it at around 24-10. I'll go 24-10 San Diego, or LA, not San Diego, LA.
And the report just came out earlier today that, and this is not a surprise, Brandon Staley most likely will get fired somewhat, whether it's a week near the end or after the season, unless they make a drastic change in terms of the way their season's going. Very unlikely, but I think Staley's going to be out of there. But for now, this is an interesting game. I don't see how the over-under could be this much because the Pats cannot score. We just don't know how to score. And giving us 6 points is kind of crazy when we can't score.
I mean,
that shows
the Chargers have also been horrible.
That's what I'm saying. That shows how badly the Chargers have been. I know there's a stat I saw. Deron Bland, the cornerback for the Cowboys, if you put his interceptions up as if he was a receiver, receptions, yards, touchdowns, he's like 10 times better than Quentin Johnston, which was their pick from TCU, their receiver. I mean, they have just not been a well-run, well-functioning, they have been decreasing with Herbert more so than they've been increasing, which is crazy.
Pathetic.
And just as an organization, it's just tough. It's really tough.
It's got to the point where the Chargers have to be cursed, honestly. Like, I can't remember if I was talking to you about this last week or someone else the other day. You got Dan Fouts for 20 years. You got Breeze, and then he breaks his shoulder, and you ship him out of town. You have Phillip Rivers for damn near 20 years. And then you have Herbert for...
Yeah.
How long has he been in the league now? Like 6 years? 5, 6 years?
It's been a while.
It really hasn't been that short of a time. I mean, it's kind of like the Tatum syndrome, where you're kind of like, oh, he's only been in the league for a few years. No, he's actually been here for over 5 years now. He's actually been here for a long time.
And before you know it, if nothing changes,
before you know it, it's 10 years in, you've done nothing.
Exactly, and we're looking exactly like a Phillip Rivers situation where it's just like, holy shit, we just wasted his career.
Exactly, and that's a complete disaster scenario for the Chargers. I think Herbert is better than Rivers. I know it's a bit of a mouthful given how underrated Phillip Rivers is in his own right. Phillip Rivers does not get the credit that he deserves for the great career that he had. But you have your best quarterback since Fouts, who outside of LT is probably the best player in franchise history. So yeah, they really have to get it done. But I'm kind of worried about it, and I'll tell you what. Another reason I'm worried about it, you're seeing all the Bill Chargers rumors, which we said before anyone else. So I don't want to hear anyone taking credit for that other than us. That was us,
and we've got clips to prove it.
Yes, we do. We have the receipts. Anyone
Robert
wants to
Saleh.
check those out?
We've got the receipts.
We have it all on our YouTube and our Instagram channels. But I'm really worried that for once this year, Bill might step up and actually coach a great game, because this is like an audition to coach the Chargers next year. If he goes in there and just puts on a clinic and finds a way to slow down the Chargers offense with Herbert, like he's shown in the past, he's beaten him twice already with a bad team and Max rookie year, which was a good team. But he's shown success against Herbert in the past, which I'm very worried about. Obviously, it's a completely different situation this year, but to me, that's why this is a winnable game. Bill's going to look at it as an audition, and he kind of has Herbert's number, so I'm kind of worried that they might squeak this one out.
And I think the Chargers are going to win, but I definitely think this is interesting.
I think the Chargers will win, but I'm worried. I'm very worried.
Falcons at Jets. Jets are 2.5 point
toilet bowl.
2.5 point underdogs. 34 is the over under. I'll give you my quick thoughts on this. I like the Falcons. I like the Jets defense a lot. Yeah. I hate their offense, obviously. I like the Falcons much more than I like the Jets, just because that offense can score. And obviously, Bijan finally had a game where he had 2 touchdowns, I think almost 100 yards. It's exciting for them. I think they need to keep going. Hopefully, they can figure out whether Ritter is completely toast or if there's potential there. Because if not, I don't think they waste their talent, and they have to go get a QB. Whether it's in the draft, free agency, trade, whatever it is, they need a guy, because this is a good roster. So I'm going Falcons. Give me the Falcons here. Probably taking the under just because I don't think the Jets can score to cover that 34, even though I think the Falcons will score a decent amount of points. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, same exact thoughts as you. I think the Falcons win. The Jets just look demoralized. The whole defense looks demoralized. They've done all that they can all season. I know we talked about this last week, but you really can't say it enough. They played at such a high level for the past few seasons now. It's not just the last 1 or 2. It's been 3 seasons that this defense has been pretty damn good. And now you have some of your young superstars who are legitimate near Pro Bowl, or some of them are Pro Bowlers. But a lot of them are now approaching Pro Bowl level. Obviously, Sauce and Quinnen Williams, they've been that good for the past year or so. But yeah, I kind of feel bad for the Jets defense. I think Saleh should get fired. I think he's a clown. But yeah, I'm going to take the Falcons to win this one as well.
All right, kind of seen the same way on both of these so far. Obviously, I think the Patriots game's a little bit more interesting for, coaching purposes and whatnot. Next game, 49ers going to Philly to play the Eagles. The Eagles are 3-point underdogs at home. 46.5 is the over-under. Rematch here from last year's, obviously, playoff game where Brock Purdy got hurt. And, it seemed like they had their best chance with McCaffrey lining up at QB.
Yeah.
So much different situation. Eagles look great again, 10-1. Yes, they've had rocky games.
Last week changed my opinion of them.
Yeah,
but I think last week was
a big thing to remember is, good teams. They might not always look phenomenal. They might not always look their best. But if you could find a way to win, you're a good team.
Right.
And they're 10-1. So I don't care what anyone says. They're finding a way to win.
They are so good.
Yeah. With that said, I really think it's tough to play 2 back-to-back tough games. Plus, I hear it's going to be raining in Philly for this one. Give me the 49ers. Give me the 49ers. I think they're favored for that reason. They know the Eagles are going to be beat up. The Niners are just, they seem like they're getting healthy, where the Eagles seem like they're a little bit more banged up. Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox just got hurt. A couple guys banged up. Jalen Carter's been every other week getting a small minor thing. I think he's good now, but I just think the 49ers here are the healthier team. I think it's more of also a storyline thing. Niners get their revenge this week. Maybe we'll see it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So interesting to see. Whatever. And 49ers, I think they take the win. I want to go over. I don't know how bad the weather is supposed to be. I mean, for all we know, it's early in the week. For all we know, it can clear up completely and be a 40-40 game because the way these two teams can score. But I'm hesitant on the over-under. Have to see what the weather is like, but I'm leaning over. Give me the 49ers. What do you think?
I'm going to take the Niners as well. They've clearly had this game circled on their calendar all season, or on their schedule, rather. You got it. Correct or not, right or wrong, coming out of last year's NFC Championship, losing Brock Purdy the way they did, the Niners feel like they got fucked and that they probably should have won that game.
Oh, yeah. And
regardless of whether it's correct, that's how they feel. And they're going to be out for blood. They're going to get this one done. I would be stunned. I would be stunned if the Niners went out there and didn't win this game. Because as you said, the Niners are doing this health-wise, play-wise. And while the Eagles are doing this too, play-wise, their injuries have got to catch up to them at some point. They've got to.
And, and we're going to touch on this actually. I'm not going to wait on that. We're going to do a little MVP check-in. Chiefs going to Green Bay. Green Bay, the Packers have been looking good. They've been looking good. They've been surprising a lot of people recently, especially with that big win over the Lions. Packers are 6.5-point underdogs. 42 points is the over-under. Chiefs, they look mortal for the first time in maybe 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is. They look mortal. What's the case here? I mean, 6.5 is not that much.
Yeah.
What do you lean? Where do you lean with this one?
I think the Packers are going to win this game. I think Jordan Love, he's developed so well. And the stats between Rodgers and Jordan Love, their first, 11, 12 games, identical. Same record, same yards, same touchdowns, same picks. What do we always say in history of sports? Always repeats itself.
Yep.
That's not saying that Jordan Love is going to be Aaron Rodgers, but there's always weird similarities with this stuff to the point where it's just scary. It's honestly kind of scary the way that some of this shit works out. I'm going to take the Packers to win. I don't like the way the Chiefs have been playing. I think the Chiefs have become boring isn't the right word. Stale. The offense has become a bit stale. You know what Mahomes is going to do. You know what Kelsey's going to do. You know that Reed's going to call up some good plays. But at some point, I don't want to say lack of talent. No, it is lack of talent. Regardless of having a pretty good running back group, and Mahomes and Kelsey, the receiver room is just so bad. It is so bad. There's no one that you can rely on to have a big game. No one. I mean, sure, one guy can pop off in 1 week and have a pretty good game and maybe seem like he can step up and take that role. Just no one in that group's good enough. They as you just said, they're mortal. They're really here's a hot take. Not even a hot take, I think it's correct. They're going to lose their first playoff game this year. They're not going to win their first playoff game. I don't see it.
Okay.
Especially if it's against a team like the Broncos, who are hot right now and find their way in. You got Denver going to KC where they're not scared at all. They already beat you, and they're hungry, and they've been firing, and they have a veteran quarterback and a veteran coach. I think the Chiefs are screwed this year. I don't see them winning a playoff game.
Okay, so off that, I think the playoff thing is I disagree on the playoff thing, but it's mainly because of this. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to use this regular season, knowing that they'll be fine even if they lose 4 or 5 games. If they get in, I think they'll be fine. I think that the main thing to look at here is the way I think of it is they are trying to do everything they could do to win without using Kelsey and just using their other receivers, building them up, building chemistry, trying different ways to win because they've been trying to save Kelsey for the playoffs. We haven't seen any, insane Kelsey games like we saw.
I can think of 1 or 2 where he's looked like phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we saw 3, 4, 5 of those last year in the regular season.
6 or 7.
Yeah, he was so good. I mean, not that he's not been good. I think it's just genuinely been.
Right.
They want to keep him healthy. They know he's getting older. They know, he had a little bit of an injury earlier in the year. And I think it's the right method. This is
smart.
something.
It's smart.
This is something that you saw the Patriots do with Gronk. When we were a well-oiled machine for a while there with Brady, and I think it's a great thing. I was so happy the Pats were doing it. I'll give up 1 or 2 regular season games to have a healthy Gronk in the playoffs, because whenever we had a healthy Gronk and Edelman in the playoffs, at times we looked unstoppable, and when we didn't, it looked like it was 3 and out almost every time. So
right.
I think if I had to lean one way, I think the Chiefs will be fine in the playoffs, because I think if they need to force feed Kelsey, they can. And no matter who's on them, if it's 2, 3 people, or if it's the best corner in the fucking league, I think Kelsey will find a way to go for, a buck 10 to a buck 50 and 2 touchdowns up to 3 if he needs. Like, they're just that good of a combo. And I think, it's just like the Brady Gronk thing. They were able to do what they needed to do at different moments, regardless of the coverage, the situation, as long as they were healthy. So,
I mean, I hear you. What you're saying is true. It's all correct. None of it is wrong. I think they're due for a first-round playoff loss. I don't think they've never had that with Mahomes, had they? They've never lost in the first round. They've never lost their first playoff game.
Nope.
They're due for it. They're so due for it. It doesn't happen. It does not happen this many years in a row that you make the playoffs this many times and you just don't lose at all. The Pats used to do it. Between Super Bowls, they lost to the Ravens a couple of times. They lost to Peyton a couple of times early in the playoffs. Not even like AFC Championship. They lost in like the divisional round. I think they're due for it. I'm not saying Kelsey's fallen off. He's lost a step. He hasn't fallen off. He's lost a step. He's not the same guy. He's still effective as hell and the best tight end in the league. But last year, he was the best weapon in the league. Not just the best tight end. He's probably the best weapon in terms of receiving, tight ends, receivers, whatever you want to say. Last year, I would have put him ahead of guys like Jefferson and Tyreek in terms of value to their teams. Not this year. I think he's lost just a tiny bit of a step.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is this Chiefs defense has been able to pick up this offense.
Yes.
Which is something that, Mahomes fans will never admit, that this defense is actually not bad.
It's the best part of the team. It's the best part of the team.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, all I remember hearing about Brady is, holy shit, he got carried. He was this. Right. He was this. He was this. Listen up, all right? Everyone gets their help. Don't give me this BS. This Chiefs team, this Chiefs unit is top 3 this year. They are a top 3 unit, and it varies week to week, but they've looked like a number 1 unit for good parts of the season. So don't give me this. He doesn't get any help. He only has Kelsey. Okay, He's got Pacheco, which is a serviceable running back, and not much else. There were times where Brady was thrown to Edelman. We had nobody else on the field to help us, and hurt Gronk. A running back that was going to be on the team for another week and then get cut, like a Jonas Gray, whatever it is. There are so many similarities in terms of what Brady and what Mahomes have. You just can't keep a great receiver with a great tight end, multiple receivers, whatever it is. You can't keep it. You see with the Bengals now, they can't keep T and Jamar, and that's just, that's two receivers, no tight end. So it happens. It's how football works. You can't pay everyone. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't want to hear any excuses for Mahomes, because whenever there were excuses for Brady, it was always a counter excuse to cover why he's still the luckiest player of all time. Don't give me that. I don't want to hear it. There's a top 3 unit there.
It's got to a point where, even when you look at like other great quarterbacks outside of Tom, you look at a guy like Elway, you look at a guy like Montana, you look at a guy like Peyton, you look at a guy like Marino. All of their teams had certain advantages and they all had disadvantages. And at the end of the day, they kind of even out. So,
the perfect example of that is, and what was it, a 3-year span, I believe? Payne went from having the best offense maybe ever,
from
one of the best offenses ever,
best offense of all time,
one of the worst defenses,
and then they had like a bottom 5D,
exactly.
And then all of a sudden Super Bowl 50, you have the best defense in the league, and that's the reason you win the championship. So I agree. It kind of all evens out.
It always does. It always does. Brady, in the back half of his career, besides that Rams Super Bowl, had not a great defense at all.
Bend don't break. They were okay.
Exactly.
They weren't great.
Exactly. You can give me all the statistics. A unit that would, not many turnovers at times. Very little sacks at times.
Yeah.
Just a defensive line that was rotating a lot of the time, and it was up to Brady to drop 30, 40 points in these Super Bowl games and get to 30, and against the Eagles get even more than 40. It was a lot. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
We can talk about this for days, but
post 2014. It really took until like 2018, like you just said, for the Pats to get an elite defense again. I mean, Vince retired, and then Hightower started showing a little bit of age, and McCourty showed a little bit of age, and then you throw in Stephon Gilmore after that, and then you have Jason McCourty coming over, and that's when the defense really stepped up again. But you're right, that 3 to 4 year stretch, and even from like 11 to 13, the defense wasn't that great. So yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah, I think honestly, early on, really early on, I'd probably say the offense being the weakness, just because Brady, obviously young, inexperienced, whatever it was.
The weaponry wasn't that great.
The weapons weren't amazing, but I think honestly the most balanced team we ever had was that Seattle Super Bowl, because
100%.
we were up against the Legion of Boom, which was maybe the best.
Outside of 07.
Yeah, well, exactly. 07 was just disgusting, but that was fueled by like a historic offense,
right?
And the defense was still just nasty. But I feel like that, and that Seahawks Super Bowl year,
team was perfect. That was a flawless.
We were going against, it was the best defense versus the best offense, and then like the number 3 defense on the Patriots, or 5, whatever it was, and like the number 3 or 5. It was like literally the verses, 1-1, 5-5, whatever unit wise, and it was such a good game. That's honestly probably the best Super Bowl I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Probably the best Super Bowl I'll ever see.
Yeah,
100%.
And great matchup. All right, well, Chiefs Packers. Give me your pair. Who do you think is going to win this one?
Taking the Packers. Especially with those points. So that's an insane amount of points for how good the Packers have looked, and how I'm not trying to shit on the Chiefs. Saying that they're going to lose in the playoffs isn't saying they're bad. They're still a great team. I just don't see them winning that much in the playoffs this year. But this week, I got them losing to the Packers.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting game. I really do. This is a tough one. This is probably the toughest one for me to pick this week for sure. I think the Packers could win this game. I could definitely see that happening, as you think it will happen. But on the other side, I just look back at it, and I don't want to be the guy that got too anti-Chief to realize that they're still going to be the Chiefs. And so I think when the offense looks bad, I think the next week they could drop 40. Whatever it is, a lot to worry about, obviously, with this, playoff wise.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the Chiefs though in this week. Definitely a take game. Honestly,
this could be Tipsy Bowl.
And then the over here might be interesting as well. 42. Packers can score at times. Chiefs.
I think the under hits. I think it's a defensive game. I think
really?
It's a very defensive game.
Tipsy Bowl of the week. We've got.
But there's
Chiefs,
another
Packers.
one. I know that there's another one that might be really interesting for Tipsy Bowl of the week.
What do you got?
Well, I'm pretty high on Denver right now. As you
Oh.
know, I got a soft spot for Denver, given Peyton's great time there, and I
Yes.
enjoyed watching it. And I know that you're a big Texans fan, so I don't know. Maybe a parlay Tipsy Bowl of the week. I take Broncos and Packers. You take Texans and Chiefs.
Let's do it. I'm
love
in.
that.
I like that.
I love that.
I like that a lot. And we're gonna touch on the Broncos in a second, but I do want to talk about this last game. We're gonna touch on. Bengals are going to Jacksonville to play the Jags here. The Jags are 8.5-point favorites. 38.5 is the over/under. What do you think? Obviously, no Burrow.
The Jags should
What do
roll
you
'em.
like?
They should roll them.
Mhm.
We've been saying it all year. They need to take that step to become an established elite team that's going to be in the run to make AFC championship runs over the next decade. And obviously, it's only, let's be honest, it's really only the second year of this team being good, and maybe we're trying to rush the process more than we should be. But you have all the pieces, and you have the coach, and the defense is pretty damn solid. So they're not really missing anything. At this point,
Yeah.
it's Trevor, are you ready? That's really the question to me. Is Trevor ready to do that? So I'm going to take them to win because they should win. And they honestly, given the landscape of the AFC, if the Jags get hot at the right time, who knows? I mean, right now I'm a Ravens guy, but the AFC's kind of wide open.
Yeah, I feel like for the most part, the entire league is pretty wide open.
yeah.
The Chiefs look mortal. The Eagles, they look strong, but they have their weak performances.
I think the NFC, if it's not San Fran or Philly, I'd be fucking shocked. I'd be shocked if it's not one of those two.
All right, we're going to touch on that in a second, actually, because I did want to. That was one of the talking points. But first, we're going to go into our MVP check-in. This is interesting, right? We've talked about this a few weeks back. There's no really, guy taking the carry or taking the lead on who's gonna win this award. Nobody's been outstanding. It's been an interesting year for that. Here are the odds, the updated odds that I found from New York Post, BetMGMs. So they have Jalen Hurts at plus 140, favorite right now. Mahomes is plus 350, second favorite. Lamar is plus 500, third. Tua plus 800, Dak plus 800, and then it goes into Purdy, Stroud, Lawrence, CMC, and Josh Allen. Is there a guy here that stands out for you for MVP?
No. I mean, I would go right now. I'd stick with Lamar, but that's more based on. It's not really I don't know how to phrase this correctly. It's not based on the numbers that Lamar's putting up because he really hasn't had to put up those huge numbers that he did when he first won MVP in his second year starting. But if you look at a guy who has completely led his team and has completely molded his team and his his attitude and his leadership qualities have kind of just like gone around the whole locker room, and he's clearly, I don't know, it's like sprinkling that fairy dust. I remember people used to say that about Peyton when he was on the Colts. Just kind of sprinkling the fairy dust all over that room, and kind of, you can just tell who's the leader. You can tell why they're good. What's the word I'm looking for? Hopefully I think of it later, but you can tell he's the heart and soul of the team. You can tell that he's kind of just willing them to win. He's the reason they're winning. He's the reason they're good. Is any other guy kind of the face of their franchise outside of Mahomes, like Lamar is right now? Can you think of another guy?
It's a good point. That's definitely a good point.
And to me, they're the best team in the league. So if you're going to look at the best team in the league and who's the most valuable piece of that team, to me, it's Lamar. So I'd stick with Lamar. But I also think that Tyreek, again, deserves more love. He could still get 2,000 yards. That is still very much in play. I was looking at it today. What, they have 6 more games, and he needs 650 more yards? So that's still very much in play. And if a receiver gets 2,000 yards, like, damn, that's at least top 3 MVP for me.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do a little bit of a breakdown right now with the stats. There's a couple things here. I love Lamar, and Lamar was my pick before. I'm afraid that his touchdowns is going to be the
holding him back in
downfall.
this race. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
I think that's going to be the downfall of him in this race. But prior to this, he was my midseason pick, whatever we did. To break down a couple other guys that are in the running for this, I'm looking at guys like, I'm not my pick. Dak has been thrown around there as a potential guy. He is not my pick for a couple of reasons. Mainly, I think they suffer from the beatdown syndrome, which is whenever you are against a bad team, you guys beat them and then just destroy them. You know, you
Right.
just put up, you blow them out. You pad those stats. Not saying he's stat padding or whatever. I'm just saying typically they're winning games 40 to 10 against a team like the Commanders. I mean, you stay in the whole time, those numbers are going to be inflated.
Right.
I haven't seen it much outside that Eagles game. I really haven't seen it this year where, off the top of my head, where I've been impressed with a game and he hasn't made a costly turnover.
Right.
So my opinion, I'm not going Dak. Then you look at the guys like Mahomes. Obviously statistically, he's going to be there every single year. He's going to be right around the top. But like you said, 21-9. I mean, Brady had starts the season where he was, 33-4 touchdown interception,
Right.
with just as bad as weapons, and he wasn't even he was like top 3, and people were like, how are you gonna give it? Like, the fact that people are now giving them the fact that people are now giving them a Mahomes, but look at his weapons, it's ridiculous.
No,
I mean, just think about it from Brady's era. Like, what are we doing?
If Mahomes wins the MVP, this award has lost all validity. He doesn't deserve it. Not at all.
Yeah.
Just because you're the best player in the league, this is the thing that people don't get. You can be the best player in the league and not have the best season. You saw that with Peyton and Tom all the time. They were the 2 best players in the league, but guys like Rodgers and guys like Breeze and guys like Rivers and guys like Big Ben, they still could have had the best season, but they weren't the best player. They just had the best season. So I really don't get this whole, oh, well, he's the best player in the league, he deserves the MVP. Fuck no, he does not. He hasn't done anything to deserve the MVP this year. Why? Because Kadarius Toney drops passes, so we're going to give Mahomes a fucking MVP? Like, what is this? This kind of credit hasn't been awarded to any other player in the history of any other sport. Just because a guy drops some passes, he deserves an MVP? Boo-hoo, grab some fucking tissues and wipe your eyes. What the fuck is that? It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy
I can tell
that he's even in the MVP race right now, because he doesn't deserve it. He really doesn't at all. We just said it. He's not the most important player on his own team right now. It's the fucking defense. Like, honestly, if you want to point out one guy, Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been their best player all year, and he missed the first 2. So there's that.
Great point. Absolutely great point. Back to what I'm thinking for MVP. I think Jalen Hurts is my guy for right now until I see, further evidence to why he shouldn't be. I mean, if you're comparing quarterback seasons based off, different metrics, he's going to be top 5 to 7, in some categories, even closer to top 3. And then you just look at his rushing numbers, and he's got almost 500 yards, and he has 11 touchdowns rushing. And he's on a team that's 10-1. He's on a team that defensively, as good as people want to think that they are, they have not been as good defensively as people think.
Not
this year. They do have a very good run-stopping defense, but we've seen in recent weeks it get gashed. So the team that's 10-1, the guy who's making a name for himself.
Yeah.
And if we're going to give it to Purdy and say, oh, Purdy, he's playing phenomenal, and he is, and I give him all the credit in the world. And he's probably maybe my third or fourth guy that I'd go with. But if we're gonna give him all the praise and say it's okay, it's not his fault that they have all these weapons, then why is Jalen Hurts getting hurt? The fact that he has a great O-line, the fact that he has a good defense, the fact that he has two really good receivers and a good tight end. Why would we shame him? Jalen Hurts, if anything, is doing more with himself because he's rushing for 11 touchdowns. He's the third leading. I believe he's the third. Let me double check this. He's tied for the second most rushing touchdowns in the league, and he's a fucking quarterback. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you make some great points, and honestly, yeah, I might have to. I want it to be Lamar, but 10-1 is 10-1, and the numbers he's putting up are bordering, not even bordering. They are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Given how he didn't have the best start either, he really didn't. Along with the whole team, he didn't have the best start, and that's something that voters usually take into account with this award. Is first 3 weeks sometimes they get thrown out the window. So, yeah. I mean, but you can't look past Jalen Hurts.
With that said,
he could win it. He really could.
With that said, I do like the Lamar pick because obviously now he's without J.K. Dobbins, he's without Mark Andrews, he's without all these guys on his offense to help him, and he's still putting together really good. This is his best passing year, I think, of his career. The way he's just demanding that offense and taking control. But a guy that I do want to sneak in there, and he's probably my fourth guy right now, maybe just behind Brock Purdy. CJ Stroud, dude. I mean, the numbers are there.
Yeah.
He's second in the league in passing, 3,200 yards. He's got 19 touchdown passes and 5 picks. I mean, he's doing it all, and he's leading this team. It's just it would be weird to see not only a rookie, obviously, but it would be weird to see a guy in a team like the Texans who, might not make the playoffs, probably won't make the playoffs, win the MVP. But if any year to do it, I mean, it's one of those.
Because I mean, honestly, no one's really stood out from the pack. They really haven't. And on top of I respect the CJ Stroud pick. I really do. Even if they have a losing record and they miss the playoffs, what most people have them at? 2-15, 1-16, 3-14.
Yeah,
so if you're like 8-9, or even 9-8 and don't make it, that's literally all because of CJ Stroud, which means value. Most valuable player doesn't necessarily mean best player on the best team who made the playoffs, who went 15-2. I think we've kind of lost the true meaning of that award. You've seen in the NBA. In the past, in like the 80s and the 70s, you've seen guys on teams with a losing record who have won an MVP. So why couldn't that happen in this instance when no one has really stood out from the pack?
Yeah.
And I know everyone is obsessed with Mahomes and wants to give him every single award because he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to football. And he's John Elway, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, Dan Marino combined. And he's just that good. And he's, oh my God, thank God for Kansas City. Thank God for Patrick Mahomes. Thank God for Andy Reid. May them bless us all. Like, honestly, who's been better this year? Stroud or Mahomes?
Stroud's been far more impressive, in my opinion.
Who's been more valuable to their team? Stroud or Mahomes? Stroud. So let's be honest about it. Let's not look purely at records. Let's look at value. Most valuable player. Value. I think we're not really looking at the whole value part of this all, which is the fucking award. So let's look at it correctly, and let's fix what has been done wrong in the past with Aaron Rodgers winning 2 of his MVPs when he didn't deserve them. He stole them from Tom Brady and J.J. Watt, but they didn't want to give it to Tom because he won it so many times, and they couldn't for some reason give it to a defensive player who scored 4 touchdowns and got 22.5 sacks. Okay, makes sense. Adds up.
Go off.
It's unbelievable. I'm sick of the MVP because it doesn't mean anything anymore. It really doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, you said it all right there. It's one of those awards where, voters are going to have their favorites. I mean, it's kind of becoming a joke. I mean, yes, if you're talking about a world real-life MVP, this would make sense. But last year, I'm pretty sure that the medic that resuscitated Damar Hamlin got an MVP vote. Yes, you're a life MVP. Yes, you're a legend. You're a phenomenal guy, and you deserve to win many awards. MVP of the NFL is not one of those.
Yeah, like God bless you. You saved
God
someone's
bless
life.
you. Yeah.
You
I mean,
saved
I'm
someone's
not
life.
downplaying it,
Thank
but
you. It's not a football player.
he almost won the MVP.
It's not a football player.
Crazy times. But let's get on to this next topic. Two more here. Denver Broncos, are they for real? I want you to touch on this because, the Broncos are a little piece of your heart right there.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of turned my back to them since, Peyton retired because a lot of emotions. I wish that they would have. They really should have held on to him longer than they did. He had one more year. I don't want to hear anyone say that he didn't. Excuse me. But the Broncos, easily the hottest team in the NFL, up there with the Ravens, up there with the Niners. This team's real. They are real. That defense is gross. Russ isn't quite Seattle Russ. He's way better than last year's Russ. To me, he's better than first 2 years in the league Russ, because now he's going back to the leader that he used to be, which was probably his best asset. When he got when he became a Hollywood quarterback, is the popular term, became a bit of a Hollywood quarterback, just became a dick. And his best asset was that he was a likable guy. And the Seahawks fell apart when he became a dick. The Broncos were bad last year for a lot of reasons. But one of them was because he was kind of a dick. And he's not that guy right now. And he's been a leader. He's been playing much better. He's getting way more out of his receivers. Courtland Sutton, in particular, has been great this year. And that defense is insane. I believe they have the most turnovers forced in the last, 10 weeks? Last 8 weeks, something like that, something crazy. So you got to give them credit. They're real. Sean Payton, everything you said about Nathaniel Hackett, completely justified. I don't care about the code. Nathaniel Hackett's a pathetic human being. He deserved every word that was said about him. So, yeah, I'm with the Broncos. They're definitely making the playoffs.
I mean, good for the Broncos. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
all I can say. One of my coworkers here and one of my friends is a huge Broncos fan, and it's been pretty cool watching.
Broncos country, let's ride.
Yes, they are riding for sure, and a year too late because I thought they'd be really good last year.
Mr. Unlimited.
For me,
Mr. Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited's back. I hope it's for real. I think the culture is being built there.
Yeah.
And that's something that's sustainable. Sean Payton definitely making his imprint there. Good for them, honestly. That's what I'd say. Last point we're going to touch on, are the Detroit Lions in trouble? What do you think, Ben? I know you wanted to touch on this.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm very worried. As a guy who really wants the Lions to succeed, I mean, maybe the Thanksgiving game was maybe they finally felt the pressure of it actually being a big game, and that kind of caught up to them a bit. It kind of threw them off their game. But they did the same thing against the Bears in a 1 o'clock game the week before. They were just lucky enough to win. So, yeah, I'm very concerned with them. Jared Goff, I don't think it's Ben Johnson's play calling. I think Jared Goff has just looked bad the last couple of weeks. So that makes me think, is he fighting some sort of injury? The O-line, which has been a strength of theirs the past 2 seasons, they looked awful last week. And not even just protecting Jared Goff, it was more so the running game. They weren't really able to get Montgomery and Gibbs going the way that they have in the past. I mean, I know that they both ended with pretty decent numbers, but not what we've expected out of them, and not how they've been playing in recent weeks. So yeah, I'm really worried about them, and the defense hasn't been that great either. So this is the biggest test of Dan Campbell's stint in Detroit since rebuilding the team and building a winning culture there. Because now you've built the winning culture, but now you're seeing some cracks, and you have to fix them. You're facing some adversity. So let's see if they can figure it out on the fly and get it done. I think they can, but I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think you make some good points. Definitely the O-line one, definitely Goff, the defense. What I would say here is the fact that when you look at a team like the Lions, and like you said, it used to be, earlier in the year it used to be, give it to David Montgomery. Gibbs didn't even have a huge role, but let my running backs take care of a lot of this load, and then let's hit them with some play action. Let's work Goff in. We got St. Brown, who's phenomenal. Laporta, who's been a star so far this year.
Phenomenal.
I mean, they have weapons. Josh Reynolds is good. Khalif Raymond, Jameson Williams. They traded for Peoples-Jones. I don't know if he's done anything, but one thing I do know is I feel like they're kind of, in a way, straying away from their roots, which should just be, let's pound the fucking ball.
Ground and pound. Jared
Pound
Goff
the
doesn't
ball.
need to be a superstar. He can make big throws in big moments. But you're not the Niners running the West Coast offense with Montana and Steve Young. You're supposed to run the ball. You play off the play action. And then on big third downs, Jared Goff drops back and hits Amon-Ra down the middle. That's how they've always done it. And
Yep.
as you just said, I'm so happy you said it. They're veering away from that. And I don't know why. Run the ball. Play off your defense. Part of the reason their defense hasn't looked great to me is because they've been seeing way more 3-and-outs and turnovers than they've been used to all season. So they're a little bit more gassed at the end of the games. They're not getting the big stops that they were early in the year. So I'm with you. They have to get back to what they're supposed to be.
I think the two biggest things is, like I said, fixing that run game. And it's not even much that needs to be fixed. It's just doubling down. We're a running team. Let's double down. Let's run the ball. David Montgomery should be getting 17 to 18 carries a game. I know it's a lot, but he should be.
He should be.
And Jahmyr Gibbs should be getting, I don't know, he should be getting 8 to 12 carries a game and then some touches out of the backfield as a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You do that, it obviously changes the game plan a lot, probably increases your running attack a lot, but it's going to be worth it because you're going to beat down the defense. You're going to wear them out, get them tired, and that's what you need to be doing. And the big reason for that is what I think, me personally, is going on with them. And this is still my first point, is Jameson Williams has come on and he's not been phenomenal. He's had a couple good plays. He's had a lot of bad plays since coming back from the suspension. But it's almost like they're trying to force him into a role of being that, wide receiver 2, that Devonta Smith to an A.J. Brown,
right?
And I just don't think, and I loved him. I don't think I really had high hopes with him. I don't think he's that guy. I mean,
at least not this year.
Yeah, exactly. At least not right now. At least not this year. So what they should be doing, it should be that hard run attack. St. Brown should be looking at, 7 to 11 receptions a game, kind of like a Keenan Allen-like role. And Laporta should be getting 6 catches a game.
Yep.
I mean, Laporta should be getting fed. He's phenomenal. Feed him. Use Jameson Williams in a little bit more of crafty ways, end arounds, whatever it is. And then use Gibbs as a little receiver. Between those guys, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and then working in Donovan Peoples-Jones, there's no reason why they shouldn't be having a solid passing attack. And they've had at many times. Goff has looked good many times, but recently he's been throwing picks, left and right. So until Goff feels more comfortable and feels like he's back in routine, feed your running backs. And this kind of goes back to the point where we were talking about it. I don't know how much the Titans were asking for, but if Derrick Henry doesn't re-sign for them, they lose him for nothing, right? Which makes me think that they're going to re-sign him. But I mean, you can't tell me that they couldn't get Derrick Henry for a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, whatever it is, multiple thirds, 1/3, 1/4. Who even knows nowadays? I mean, you add him to that attack. You don't have to worry about feeding Montgomery too much. You don't have to worry about feeding Gibbs too much. You could literally go 12, 12, and 8 and just have and just go, 70 yards, 50 yards from your 3 backs and just double down on your running attack. And, that is just as good of an asset as a passing attack, in my opinion.
I'm so happy that you brought up the running game and the need for them to emphasize that. And I love that you brought up the Eagles, where they have the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith duo.
Yeah.
The Lions are what they are, and they found success being what they are. And God knows why they tried to become something else mid-season. If you're going to do that, if you're going to evolve, you do that in the offseason. Or you do that after a couple of years of being good at what you're good at and building upon that in a way. You don't do it in the middle of a fucking season and ruin everything that you built. It's asinine.
Yeah. And the last point I'll mention, and we'll be out. This defense, it's young at parts. It's banged up at times. The one thing I think that they could have really used is getting another pass rusher, because as
someone to play off of Hutch.
Exactly.
They need someone to play off of him.
As good as we want to make Hutch, he's not that upper tier of a rusher, at least yet.
Right.
He's probably right at the bottom of that tier 2 with guys like Hassan Reddick. He's at the
He's
bottom
gonna
of
be
that
tier
list.
1, but not yet.
And yeah, and we haven't seen him get to that point yet. He's got times where he looks like the top of the top, and he's got times where he doesn't really do too much. So, I mean, one thing I'd say is imagine if they added a guy like, obviously Montez Sweat. The Bears paid a lot for him, and he looks like a good get. Chase Young was available. Plenty of guys. I mean, I don't know what they could have necessarily done, but for a team like this, imagine if they brought on Aaron Donald
Yeah.
for a first round pick and a third
Dude,
next year.
Even a guy like Uche, who isn't having a
Uche.
tremendous season, but a guy that would only cost you like a 6th-round pick, and you just throw him in there and see if he can make something happen. To me, that's a no-brainer to try to get a guy like that.
And Ali McNeil has been great, and he's a good player, but just he's interior. Go get another guy that can rush from the edge, and this would be a much scarier unit than it is. But with all that said, they are 8-3, so the world is not falling down. They just obviously look a little bit slower.
The NFL's an overreaction league.
That's right, and it's a no fun league. The way they're handing out these fines, how crazy is that, right?
That is, you're not wrong on that one. You're not wrong on that one.
All right, well, that is NFL Week 13 overview, recap, storylines, whatever you want to call it. Tipsy Tailgate Media. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya.